Welcome back to another episode of Balance Your Wealth. I'm your host, Ryan, and this week we're going to try something a little bit different. We had everyone on the team look through some news articles, pick out some headlines that popped to them, and we're going to have a discussion around those different subjects. So this week I'm joined by Bob, Shaun, Nora, Nic, and Adam, and we're going to go ahead and get it kicked off. Bob's got our first article. He picked something a little more fun, Pizza Hut, as they are potentially going to be sold to private equity. So Bob, you want to kick off the conversation here?
Sure, yeah. This is my inner fat boy here, just loving Pizza Hut and all delicious things. And, I not only this article seeing Pizza Hut potentially going private, but also some other ones talking about trying to bring back the nostalgia of Pizza Hut going forward, right? And I think it's really an interesting shift as, everything moved from in store to delivery. And now I think they're looking at moving back to creating kind of that old school in-person experience that I remember when I was a kid going in there. So, I don't know how to speak to the financials of this transaction, if it's going to make sense, how it's going to work. I just think it's interesting that they're trying to find different ways to get people to eat pizza, which I love to do, right? And I think that if they can make more creative ways to get people in the doors, it's going to be a good thing for Pizza Hut and food lovers in general.
And as someone who loves the stuffed crust meat lovers pizza myself and thinks that pizza is very underrated, it's always interesting from a financial perspective. There's so many more private equity firms getting involved in a lot of things. And
Mhm.
I think, as part of this discussion today we'll talk about is it's so much easier for people to get their brand out there. We're wearing newer clothes than we wore from, the Gap and Abercrombie. New brands can come out more easily. There's better and newer pizzas coming around that, in my opinion, you can't touch Pizza Hut. But the world is changing, we're adapting, and the financial markets are going to adjust.
Man, I don't know. Pizza Hut. I mean, it's clear that, they were for sale and not good old Papa John's because that might be the best of the fast food pizza franchises. But also, Papa John's in Colorado, where home base is, tastes completely different than any other Papa John's I've ever had. So before you judge it, go to the Colorado ones. But yeah, this deal and what Bob said, kind of the pushback. And I think one of the big moves with private equity that's already been kind of speculated on this is that they are going to push into some of those more nostalgic, um, restaurants footprints.
Mhm.
And so that will be really interesting. Just a big push from in real life. Like you said, it went even from like in store to delivery. And then I think you skipped over, there's a whole nother phase of like pizza automation. And now there's like
Mhm.
robots making pizzas or there's pizza vending machines. And now it's like, no, people actually are pivoting back to this, old school in real life IRL is what the cool kids call it. And I agree. I have no idea what the dollars and cents is of all this, pepperonis and cheese moving around. But yeah, I think if they can execute on that, it'll be a big win.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be tough, but I think that it's easier to be done in private equity versus a public market, right? Like you can invest in this change inside of the longer term focus versus it continuing to be a part of Yum Brands and, having to answer to shareholders. So we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Good points. I'm just gonna have to say that the breadsticks are very clearly the best part of Pizza Hut. I have to every few months it feels like I have to convince my wife we're getting Pizza Hut, which doesn't always work well, but hey, it's life. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and transition to the next article. So Nic picked this one. It's about Sam Altman and Dario Amodei, the CEOs of OpenAI and Anthropic, kind of changing their stance around AI creating a job apocalypse and how that's not actually what we've been seeing. So Nic, do you want to go ahead and lead that conversation a little bit?
Yeah, this has been, I think, one of the biggest fears, just in the public in general, and rightfully so. People are generally pretty scared about AI, and one of the main reasons they're scared is like, is this going to upend my whole livelihood and the way I do, but the way I make money is my family going to be taken care of. And naturally, the people that were at the forefront of all this AI stuff were saying like, yeah, this is going to totally change the economy. It's going to cause disruption, and ultimately, what we've seen is that a lot of that is true. Like there is definite disruption. There's definite like less people being used for call centers and like more AI robots being used for that. But at the same time, too, there's so much growth in people that are like less employed now. Like maybe they found a way to use AI to their advantage and they're able to completely replace their income by working less is a huge thing we're seeing. But also even like college grads was the big one. Sorry, graduating high school and even going into college and college grads, like that whole area. Those are what we're calling like AI native kids. Like they grew up in high school with Chat GPT to just spit out the answers to them. Like we didn't have that. That's completely different dynamic. And now these kids are entering the workforce and they've been using AI for years already at this point to solve problems and to find ways to make it look good and, you know, not be so robotic. And those kids, as they enter the workforce, you know, as a AI native person, they're actually the whole paradigm shifting. It's like nobody's hiring college grads. And now it's like all these young kids are the first ones being hired because every company wants an AI native person to help lead the initiative. Because you can't just like AI is great and all, but like you can't just flick a switch at your company and be like, hey, I'm an AI company now. I don't know. Allbirds did that, I guess. But it's more like for small businesses trying to implement this stuff, they still need somebody to spearhead that charge. So that's been really interesting dynamic to see.
I think, specifically with this article is what it's showing is AI today or what it was last year is not going to be what it is next year or even certainly 10 years from now. So as companies continue to learn about AI, how does it fit in their company? I think historically any, transformative technology doesn't necessarily eliminate jobs. It's just going to change jobs, right? And I think we're learning that. So with all the fear on the front end saying, oh, we're going to eliminate all these jobs with this new technology, it's just changing. I think with everything we learn to adapt. And if we don't adapt and, be transformative, then that's who the companies and those are the individuals that are going to be left behind. So I think the question, in this article isn't whether, AI wins, but it's who adapts it faster and who kind of embeds it into their everyday work to continue to grow as a business.
And historically, we've seen disruptors to the market, right? Whether that be the automobile, nuclear power, the cell phone, websites. Everyone thought that, horses would be gone once automobiles were there and trains would stop being used once airplanes were created. And it turns out that those jobs just shift to a different place. And so as humans, we're very good at adapting. And then our creativity gets to come. And thank goodness we live in the greatest country that ever existed. And capitalism survives and people will find a way to make money while utilizing the new technology. So I think that these people, just because they're in charge of a hedge fund or in charge of a technology company, doesn't mean they have all the answers. And so oftentimes we get hit with these news cycles that create fear. And we found out that Americans are really good at coming up with new ideas and adapting and creating more value for society, no matter what the disruptor is.
I took more of a pessimistic approach on this article too. It's as these guys are eyeing these huge IPOs, of course they're going to shift their stance that AI is all bad and be like, no, it's actually pretty good. Let's make sure we get some money in our pockets.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, Ryan. That's, they are actually Anthropic. So Dario's company filed for an IPO. I think it was yesterday, June 1st. So there's a good chance that Anthropic has their IPO in 2026 as well. So yeah, trying to build up the public to not, hate their company before a big public offering is a good marketing strategy. And Shaun said these news cycles certainly go through it. But we'll, yeah. Don't we have more topics on AI maybe not being the worst thing in the world?
Yeah, for sure. So the next article that we've got here is Nora teed this one up. So it's around tokens or humans. So this is just generally the idea that as all these companies have pushed greater and greater adoption of AI, the bill is starting to show up and it's starting to be evaluated alongside, the line item for payroll because it's getting so expensive. So Nora, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So I think AI, we could probably hold hours and hours of just news articles and things about AI as we continue to learn those and embed those into, our everyday work. But what I found kind of most interesting about this article is that it opens up a different perspective of AI. It's shifting the debate from will AI work, right? We've seen it done wonderful things, but whether AI is cost effective. And so,
Hmm.
one thing that people don't think about is, okay, we need to incorporate this technology or we're going to be left behind, but like the cost associated with that AI, it's a whole new transformative technology. There's a cost associated with that. So this article kind of goes through these large companies that set aside these budgets, right? These, to continue to grow. And what they found is, their annual budgets are being wiped away in like 2 months, right? So
Hmm.
that's not necessarily going to help you grow. So I think, the question in this article is, will not rather AI is going to replace, workers, but is an AI token, the cost of implementing AI, more valuable than an hour of work from an employee? So these are the kind of, questions that companies are coming up with is, okay, do I implement stronger technology, or do I focus on return of investment and replace some of these workers, or just maybe replace AI with some different levels of, services that the company offers?
Yeah, that's what I took from it too, Nora, right? Was the idea that you might not need AI to run through every single task, even if it can, right? Because it's going to be prohibitively expensive to have it run everything within your company. And it may just be smarter to keep humans where humans are going to be the most efficient and layer in AI where that's going to be the most efficient. So I think, again, it goes back to what we were talking about with the last article, this balance of utilizing technology for what it's great for, but also humans adapting to make sure that we're being cost effective and efficient with all of it.
There was another headline very similar to this that just came out. I think it was like last week, but there was a AI consultant that was hired to be the AI person and implemented at this company. And they spent $500 million in Claude tokens in 1 month. And so almost $500 million in AI spend. And a lot of that was just because there was no oversight into what was going on. And like the AI was just like spinning in circles, basically. And all these things just running in an endless loop. And it's like, oh my goodness, that's a bill that no business even thought of about 2 years
Hmm.
ago, let alone something like that coming down. So, yeah, being thoughtful with it and not using it for, to write maybe every single sentence that you write. Like, maybe it's okay to write your own sentences every now and then. But yeah, just crazy the amount of learning that every like I think it also just highlights that nobody has this totally figured out yet, right? Like we are in the very early stages of this, and even the AI consultants that are doing this still make these mistakes and are still figuring it out at the biggest companies. So
Awesome. Moving on from there, we've got another article from Nic. This one he's passionate about. He was telling us about it on the weekly meeting when we were chatting yesterday. So we know where his passions lie on this one. So these two articles are around data centers and kind of maybe the misconception of water usage. And then as an aside, the other article is about kind of local municipalities, their water treatment centers and the impact on those. So Nic, you kind of want to tee those two up for us?
yeah, and I think like the biggest thing with me that I see every time I see a headline about water usage in data centers is that we have no perception for like what a lot of water is or what not a lot of water is. And like everything's measured in like billions of gallons per year. It's like, oh my goodness, that's so much water. Like, what are we doing? And even just like all the rain we got in Michigan this year, I think like filled up like Michigan an extra inch, which is like, I don't know, a trillion gallons or something like that. And so it's hard because like in our everyday lives, we don't measure water usage like this, and certainly not in thousands of gallons or even hundreds or let alone billions of gallons. And so basically, the big takeaway from these articles is that data center water usage is still a tiny fraction of all the things that we use for water. And one of the big ones to point a finger at is almonds. Like if you just pop by the gas station and grabbed a pack of almonds, like you probably just used or contributed more to water usage than you did for like a month's worth of AI usage for yourself. So it's like, man, almonds, like what's going on? Like, so I don't know. It's just a little backwards. I think this article is good to just level set. If you care about water, are you framing it right? Like, are you panicking about the wrong things? And I think there is, I I could just ramble on for this forever, but there's some merit to like people being worried or scared about AI and in their communities and data centers in their communities. I totally understand that. Um, but the same note, a lot of this water is in a closed loop. So like it get filled up and it's like a closed loop that runs. A lot of them are using like derivatives of water. It's like a cooling liquid. It's not even water inside the data centers. That's running. Um, but then also it's like this is for a lot of communities, especially like rural communities or I don't know, underdeveloped or not run down communities, former industrial areas. This opportunity with data centers trying to be built out all over the US might be a once in a lifetime thing to get all of the municipalities and all of the grid infrastructure upgraded by the big tech companies who have seemingly endless amounts of money to spend on this. And so just because there's negatives or conceivably negatives, these are once in a lifetime opportunities to upgrade the infrastructure of your entire state or city. So worth looking at.
Ultimately, anytime there's a new technology, right? It's so easy to say, hey, we shouldn't do that, but it's so necessary, right? Every email we send, every text message we send, every package we get, it's received. There's a 1 and a 0 stored somewhere on a server that you need to be able to access that from a cloud. So it's easy to say, hey, I don't want these data centers here, but would you want every text message you send to be deleted the next day or every email you send to be deleted the next week? Because all that information needs to be stored. Every picture you take on your phone, it's going to be there. So there's always going to be unintended consequences. And I think that as a society, again, we're adaptive. So maybe we figure out how to store this information in Antarctica where it's cheaper to cool it and the servers can run nonstop. And we put them on Mars with Elon Musk, right? Whatever it may be, we'll adapt to it. And it is good that we get community involvement to say, hey, things are changing. I don't really like it. Let's maybe spur up that adaptation so it happens quicker. Society gets better. I think it's all part of the loop. And we're all just figuring it out. It's also brand new to everyone.
Yeah. And I think, when water gets brought into the question, I think by default, we always think it's an environmental issue. But this article and a lot of the questions around that's happening now, it's really an economic issue, especially when you bring in AI and things like that. So I think, especially this article, it brings around the question of, how do you balance, consumer demand for these things, conservation, food production, trying to stay on top of technology when you're all battling for the same resource. So I think that brings, the biggest challenging question when we talk about, water usage, consumer demand, and things like that.
Yeah, and one of the points that was made in this article that was interesting is, to Shaun's point, this technology that we're talking about, data centers, are pretty required, right? They're almost a requirement of modern living. Almonds, not necessarily a requirement, right? Sorry to pick on it, guys. Golf courses, definitely not a requirement, right? Having big, lush green lawns and a swimming pool for everybody, not requirements, right? So the idea of we're picking on something that is more of a requirement and leaving aside things that use exponentially more water than these data centers to run them, whether it's a golf course or a swimming pool or even my lawn out front, which mine is naturally watered from the rain, so I'm good. But, it's a decision of where do the consumer preferences go and why are we committing so much to some things that aren't required as these data centers may be.
I was with you to the golf remark, Bob. Right, we got to maintain golf courses to the highest level. But yes, your lawn is brown, so you're fine not to water it. But I mean, ultimately, Nora, you hit the nail on the head. Right, this is the definition of economics. It is managing the scarcity of resources to be the most productive for society. That's what economics is. That's where data centers are kind of coming into play. And it's easy to say you need to get rid of them until you take away people's saved information. And that's when they say, well, I want that. And again, oil is very similar. Yeah, let's get rid of oil. But then we use it in everything that we use on a daily basis. It's like, well, I still want those things, but I don't want oil, right? We can't have it all without any unintended consequences. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see kind of how this conversation develops in the future.
So for the audience, the article we're looking at here is data centers use currently roughly 17 billion gallons of water per year. Sounds like a lot until you realize that every single day, Americans use $9 billion gallons. I'm used to talking about dollars to water their lawns. So within 2 days, we spend more water watering our lawns than all of the data center usage combined. And when we look at like almond farms, specifically in California, because that's the only place where the almonds are really farmed, that's in the trillions of gallons per year. So almond farms use almost 75 times the amount of water usage as data centers. And we'll just skip over the golf course one. I want to make sure I'm on Sean's good side here. So
Awesome. Really great points. The point I really like that you made too, Nic, is this might be the only opportunity to, we always hear about our aging infrastructure. If we can have the big tech companies help pay some of that bill to upgrade it along the way of making all these data centers, maybe that's something we should take advantage of. So with that, we're going to move on to our next article, a little bit more of a positive spin on AI. So Adam chose an article that talks about some laser weeding machines for the agricultural industry. Adam, you want to go ahead and tee that one up for us?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I would say this is a unique article because when people think of AI, they don't instinctively think of farming operations. But the reality of it is it's AI is incorporating itself into that sector quickly. And this article is interesting because it's showing the utilization of a laser weeding machine as opposed to using chemicals, herbicides, which is good and bad, right? The AI progression of using an autonomous vehicle to do manual grunt work, yeah, that's important, but at what cost does that come, right? There's a tremendous capital upfront cost that is required to hop into these sources of AI. And what am I giving up? I'm giving up potentially bodies, people, which ironically, kind of tying it back to Nora's article, if you look at the agricultural and ranching and farming industry, they actually dominate the older, I think it was, and help me out, Bob, but I think it was those that were over the age of 55
Yep.
were prominent in the agricultural community and that sector of the economy. And so the trade-offs versus experience that the people are going to give you in that industry versus the shiny new object, which AI is providing, is great. However, I'm hoping that these laser weeding machines are not like the latest iPhone where they come out with a new version every single year. And so I'm tying up all of my funds and capital into buying the newest and greatest machine versus like, hey, let's wait, let's pause, let's see where all the new AI filters out, where's it fall within the section or the sector of this economy, is see if it's a good business plan, see if it's worth that that move to trade an AI autonomous tractor for employees. I don't think the data's not out there just yet, and so I caution people to jump into that next shiny bright subject, but the case is still out there. I'm still on the side of humans, right? I still think that nothing can replace experience, especially out in the crop field. So jury's still out for me. Even though it was an interesting article, the jury's still out.
And I think it's good when we go around and meet with some of our clients or farmers. A lot of times they're given kind of use of some of these AI tools or automated combines, and they put them to work, and they find out, yeah, they're really great, but then it's down for maintenance, and you need a special maintainer to be able to come out and do it. And so again, it kind of relates to everything we're talking about. New jobs will be created. That's someone that doesn't have experience working on that type of combine to be able to come out and service it. As we implement it, we learn things, we need to adapt, and then ultimately make a decision from a financial perspective. Does it make sense to continue investing in this? Or does the old school people just get the job done better, more efficiently, something that's predictable, and that lowers my costs? Ultimately, all of it will come to a head at some point. And again, I think it will be a blend of each of those things to continue to spur our economy.
Yep, agreed. And last thing I'll say on that, right, is just the other thing that I think is a tailwind, behind the laser weeding is just the less use potentially of herbicides and pesticides, even if it's not more effective, just the public perception of, hey, this wasn't sprayed with some chemical and instead was, laser weeded or whatever. So it's just, I'm interested to see where the technology goes.
Reminds me of like I think, was it the Chinese launched something like this where it's like a bug zapper where it's like shooting mosquitoes out of the air with the same technology. So like that one, I think we could all get behind is
I'm
the
in.
mosquito zapper.
Yeah.
Till you catch a stray laser beam to the eye because a
Yeah.
mosquito landed near you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Adam, I think you brought up a good point. We're all in finance, right? We're all financial advisors. So like when you or Shaun go out to meet clients, we already knew that equipment is expensive. And now we're creating more technology and more equipment that has, a huge price tag on it. So when it comes to planning, right, it's not maybe individual personal planning, but if you are a farmer or small business owner and you want to adapt some of this technology, not only is it going to you need more liquidity, right, in ways to fund this technology. But it also goes back to your point, Shaun, is return on investment, right? Like AI is still fairly new. It's going to continue to change. So does it make sense to implement this now with, a planning perspective and how you're going to fund this? Or, like you said, Adam, is human still gets the job done at the most efficient, way for your personal life or your small business?
Yeah, that is a great point, Nora. The one thing that humans can adapt better than any AI machine can is the weather, right? The weather has so much to do with farming and agricultural that adapting to what the weather gives you or doesn't give you is probably better suited for a human who has 250 plus years of experience versus an AI who's got about 250 hours worth of experience.
Awesome. Great points, everyone. We're going to really quickly touch on Bob's second article. It's just about kind of the aging workforce, which I think ties in well with as we have these AI improvements and that workforce might be leaving, being able to replace them. So, Bob, you want to quickly touch on that before we move on?
Yeah, it was just an article talking about how the fastest growing segment of workers in the workforce is above the age of 55, which, has a lot of different reasons. Some of it goes back to just these are the folks that fit the certain job criteria, whether it's agriculture, transportation was a big one, right, as it relates to truck drivers, school bus drivers, things like that. But also, I think some of it comes back to a lot of what we do as planners, right? We find folks that are maybe delaying retirement or taking like a partial retirement to maybe, just bolster up their savings or wait on Social Security. But also, I think this is my 2 cents. Some of it is just you get bored, right? You're getting older. Maybe you do retire. You can retire. Like even my dad, he went and worked at Home Depot, right, just to keep busy and stay busy. So I think it's a good thing that it's an increasing part of the economy. I hope it's not that it's a requirement, but I think it ties to a lot of these different conversations around AI and how we can utilize them, but also that we're going to fill gaps in the workforce when and where it's needed.
Older people
Awesome.
are hopping on there, Bob, because the younger generation, the first question they ask at a job interview is, "Can I work from home?" Right? Is is this job remote? Right? And oftentimes that's probably not the question you should be answering to get your first job, but in reality, like older people are used to it. They're not afraid
Yeah.
to it. They're willing to go in there and be in the office, in the field with other people. Like that's where we're at right now. Clearly we're adjusting, but that's probably has something to do with the shift of older generation dominating the workforce.
Yeah, and the work from home is an interesting component to that because there was a recent study done that I was just reading that new college grads, the unemployment rate right after college has increased over the last 5 years. And a lot of it has to do not just from AI taking over these jobs, but from employers not wanting to hire new grads that want to work from home, have been brought up in a work from home environment that don't have that social skill that they're looking for, right? They're not in an office. They're not learning from different, employees in the office. So that the work from home, I wouldn't just gear, unemployment directly to AI taking jobs, but a lot of it has to do with social, let's meet in person, right? Learn in person rather than just work from home.
Awesome. With that, we're going to move on to something that's been dominating the headlines recently as SpaceX is coming up on their IPO. I'm sure you've seen all the headlines that it's going to be the most valuable IPO ever and all that good stuff. So this is Shaun's article. So Shaun, you want to go ahead and lead this one off for us?
Yeah, so I've probably had a dozen questions in the last two or 3 weeks. Should I buy SpaceX IPO? And my answer remains consistent. Okay, so when you look at IPOs, historically they underperform the long-term market, and so a lot of that's because investment banks get behind it. They try and pump it up. You get new investors that are excited about it. And they typically go through a hold period of about 6 months. After that 6 months, those people can sell their shares and they dump them. And then the price comes falling down. Those companies are then, required to start reporting their financial reports on a quarterly basis, file them with the SEC. And now all of a sudden we get to kind of see what's behind the curtain when they were a private company, didn't have to publish that information. And so
Hmm.
then we kind of find out how a company actually does. And certainly if you hit it big, you get the NVIDIAs or the Googles of the world, you're going to feel really, really good. But there are numerous other ones that don't perform that well. So as long as your financial plan is on track and you want to dabble a little bit, go for it. But if you think that you're going to go ahead and strike it rich because you got in on the IPO, very few times does that mean a successful financial plan. And I'd kind of,
Hmm.
advise you against it. Proceed with caution.
Yeah, I'll add on that, Shaun. Like the SpaceX one in particular, like these companies and all the companies that are IPOing today, chances are that they were founded and created and have been in the privately held world for a long time, decades. Like SpaceX, I think was founded in like 2008 or 2009, so
Hmm.
almost 20 years old. That it's been growing and maturing. And that's very different than the IPOs of like Apple and Microsoft, like way back in the day. You're like, oh, if I would have just bought Apple when it IPO, it's like, well, these companies are 10 times bigger already by the time they enter the public markets. And so, yeah, totally. I think some tempered expectations. Could it be super volatile? Totally. I would expect it to be volatile. I don't think it's just going to IPO and just like stay at some flat price. Like it'll be swinging up and down crazy amounts. The buy or not to buy, like it's really hard to use like the past performance of IPOs for this one because literally all of the rules of the indexes and everything has changed for SpaceX and Anthropic and OpenAI all set to IPO this year. So, for example, like the S&P 500 changed their rules so that companies can now be added. I think it's as quick as, is it 5 days or 15 days?
15.
Super fast anyway. Yeah. Used to be 90 days with a whole year of profitability. And now it's like, we're waiving the profitability requirement and it can be added 15 days. So that is a huge amount. Everybody that owns any sort of S&P 500 or US large cap fund is automatically going to be purchasing SpaceX within those first few weeks, which is, again, unprecedented, never happened before. And there's only, I think, 5% of float. So that means of all the shares outstanding, the public offering is for 5% of the pie. So this is a relatively small slice that's going to be traded. Scarce resource, lots of trading, lots of volatility, certainly. So anyway, yeah, to buy or not to buy, let's talk to your financial advisor, see where it fits in your plan or doesn't fit in your plan. But yeah, the chances of this one doubling or tripling in some short period of time seem very low, is my guess. So
And you kind of hit another point, Nick, is that once it does get in the S&P 500, it's going to be a part of your portfolio already, right? Why
Hmm.
over allocate to a very volatile resource? I will also tell you that someone who worked in cost analysis in the government doing space programs, these spends are billions of dollars on capital. It costs tens of thousands of dollars to put 1 pound of material into space. So if you get one project wrong, it can tank your company, right? There's
Hmm.
huge investment that can be really, really hard to come back. This isn't necessarily I messed up on an automobile or I built a factory in the wrong place. You build the wrong satellite and send it to space, that could be the end of your company. A lot of space companies are formed to go under because the amount of capital involved in their projects is so expensive.
Awesome, great conversation. Yeah, I think as you guys said, just proceed with caution with the SpaceX IPO if you decide to allocate some funds. So with that, we're gonna crown Shaun the champion of the week, and he's gonna go ahead and take his 30 to 60-second rant here.
So we were talking about watering and watering golf courses, which we absolutely need to water more often and keep them beautiful. because they are aesthetically good for America. However, I will tell you, COVID has killed golf. This work from home, you got people playing all day, every day, laptops out in their golf cart. You can't make a tee time anymore because everyone's out there playing. I'm glad people are getting sunshine, a lot of vitamin D. But for those of us that are really busy and have a hard time figuring out what we're going to do tomorrow, we don't have the time to plan our tee time 7 days in advance. Tee times are hard to come by and the courses are overcrowded. So raise the prices or get off the course and get your butt in the office. We need to play some more golf.
Awesome. You heard it here first. Shaun is championing return to office so there's more room and availability on his local golf course. So with that, thanks for joining us for another week of Balance Your Wealth, and we look forward to seeing you next week.